Yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Mid-Tier Thoughts. We're joined today again by Muffin Top Tactical. We got some fun stuff to talk about. Let's dive into it.
What's up, boys? Oh. Well, Paul Harrel, man, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for Paul Harrell, I think, like, for me, the big thing is, for a lot of us, he was kind of like the gun daddy in a way, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, like that crazy uncle. Yeah,
Yeah.
gun daddy, crazy uncle. Um, for me, Paul Harrel was the guy where you could figure out, okay, how does the military zero like M1 Grand, M14, M1A sights? How do I do an FBI reload? Because with today's YouTubers, you don't really see that type of using of the old school technology. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he had a good blend, I think, of like old school borderline futtery as well as like actual practical application.
Yes, actual like his video with the breakdown of the Miami-Dade shootout is
Yeah.
probably one of the best ones I've seen.
I think what we're like one of the videos, I mean, one of the first things I remember watching getting started with him was when he would do his like um, body armor videos to show like what body armor does to your body. And he would just tape a watermelon to a thing of like soft armor and then shoot the soft armor and be like, well, it didn't penetrate, but it fucked up the watermelon.
Right, or his meat, like how he would do like it would have pork ribs and a thing of leather and then a couple things of denim
Mm-hmm.
and then like a pot roast. Like he put a lot of thought into how he did his quote unquote ballistics testing,
Yeah.
um, trying to make it mimic the human body as much as possible. Which I mean, ballistics gel's fine, but it doesn't really mimic the human body. And then the one where he shoots out of his bed when he hauled the bed out
Yeah.
to the range. I don't know. I think with him leaving, he hasn't really posted nothing there in about a year, 6 to 8 months, any, as far as him doing it. But I hope his
Yeah.
brother is able to pass that torch on and kind of give you the similar vibe. It's not as flashy, not as got as much production value as like you know T Rex arms or Grand Thumb or all those
But you know what?
guys.
I think that was his appeal,
Yeah, yeah,
because like I went back and watched some of the older stuff just to kind of prepare for this again to kind of refresh my memory.
right.
And it's funny because like a lot of the videos, like there's no like channel name intro or anything. A lot of it like it looks like the opening scene of like a 2003 NRA DVD.
Right,
You know, like
right.
there's a guy shooting pumpkins, and then like it does the whole corner page turn animation, and now he's shooting something else, and there's like music in the background, but you can still hear the crickets.
Yeah, he's very using very rudimentary editing software.
Yeah, I mean, it basically, it looked like a home video,
Right.
like that you put into like a one of those like super basic like movie makers on like Microsoft when you get a basic computer and you all you can do is like slideshow animations,
Yeah.
you
Or
know?
like transitions from scene to scene.
Yeah,
It's like corner up, corner down, or swipes.
yeah,
But that's not what made Paul Harrell Paul Harrell. It
right.
was coming out there in a duck shooting jacket with a recoil pad, giving you straightforward information with a little bit of his commentary and showing you with no frills on what he thought. And
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of us that are going to miss that because you just never know nowadays with the YouTube how it is, who's bought and who's not, and whether or not they actually have quote unquote bona fides, but because he was brought up in shooting in a completely different era than all of quote unquote us. Uh, he was in the time of late Jeff Cooper, early, and with Revos being more of a thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think he was like that good blend between the old school and new school for a lot of us, because there's some of his stuff that he had that was like, oh, that's actually pertinent information, and some of it was like, yeah, that's kind of funny. But I think the big thing for me too was just, once it was announced that he had cancer, like it's hard to watch someone go, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that's what, like, for a lot of us having, like, at some point in life, growing up with Paul Harrell, just see him get worse and worse.
Right.
I think that was one of those things where it was like, he was kind of hard to watch.
Well, the nice thing is the gun community really did get behind him. A lot
Yeah.
of people had a lot of shit to say about Paul Harrell, like while he was healthy, but really, they rallied behind him, like Grand Thumb did. A lot of people
Yeah.
did, and they got his channel up to over 1 million subscribers, 1 million
Yeah. I thought
plus.
that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool to see people unite like that and be
Yeah,
like, look, you can have your opinions one way or the other, but like, let's do it for him.
but honestly, he had a big influence because the guy's been doing it since forever. He just didn't
Yeah.
bother with keeping up with. Like, he reminds me of my dad, like the grandfather dad version of YouTube. Like, if my dad was to do YouTube, his would be very no fuss, no muss, no bullshit. Like, hey, this is what it is, and I that's why it appeals to me because I feel like I'm
Yeah.
talking to somebody that I know. That makes sense.
I, th-
Like,
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, it was one of those things where, at least my experience was similar, to where it was almost like your grandpa or your uncle, like someone you almost felt like you didn't actually know the guy, but you almost felt like this kind of like paternalish style relationship there with the way he would present himself and his information, and it almost did kind of come across as like your uncle sent you a video on Facebook kind of thing, you
right?
know.
Check
And
this
I think
out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and like with the crickets and stuff in the background, and like the area where he was at, like it looked a lot like where I grew up in certain videos, depending
Right.
upon which part, especially when you'd be at the range. And so it was kind of like that nostalgia feel with it, and that was the other thing too, is like I maybe he has, but I can't remember seeing a video of him where he was like, oh, this company sent me this, right?
I
So
think
a
I
lot of
think he owned all the firearms that he showed on that
yeah.
channel.
I think most of that was just a guy who had cool thoughts and opinions that wanted to show them off, and was like, hey, like I've got no money coming in from this, and I'm just here to show it.
Right. I don't know. I'm sure he had a little bit of money coming in because I think his. I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, like from the views and stuff and like just things like that, sure, but I mean, like it wasn't like, hey, Paul Netto sent me out the Jackal and we're gonna try it out today. You
Right.
know what I mean?
I don't know. I probably haven't watched every one of his videos, but I've watched quite a few of them. Like, if I need to know how to zero an N1A site, like how to do that zeroing procedure, or like the A1 site on an M16. If I type that in and I see a Paul Harrell video come up, he's one of the quote unquote trusted uh, people that I'll jump on his channel and watch it. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I think he had a big impact, and I think for me, I was going through, like I said, I was going through his channel to like refresh on some videos, and I found one where it was a short of his, and it was more recent. And I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of hard to watch. Like I kind of like teared up a little bit because it
right,
was, he's always joking around about like Pop Tarts and like MREs and stuff on his show,
oh
and
yeah,
he opens up an MRE. And it's after he's had cancer. He's had it for
right.
a couple months and he's not looking good. And he's like, what do you know? This one has a toaster pastry. And he opens it up and he looks at it and you can just see the smile of joy on his face. And he takes a bite and to him, you can see in his eyes, it's like the best thing he's ever had in his life.
Yeah,
You know, and,
I saw
and
that
he's,
one.
yeah, and he says, he's like, due to my condition, I can't really have sweets, and this is probably the best thing I've ever had in my life, and I don't know whether to cry or to laugh. And I was like, I'm not crying, you're crying.
Yeah, hey, shut up. I'm not crying. Shut up, dude.
Yeah, it's just my eyes are sweaty.
Yeah, don't look at me. Yeah, I saw that same one, and I agree. It was hard watching him on his way out, but he definitely left his mark on the gun community. And Lord willing that his brother carries it on, which I have some doubts. That makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
there's only one Paul Harrel. There's only one Grand Thumb. There's only one T-Rex arm.
Well, I mean,
there's only one of these guys. And
yeah, it's like the same thing. It's
I-
like the same thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I poke a lot of hate at Grand Thumb, but I'll watch every video he comes out with. But I don't poke at him because I hate him. It's just because he's the big dog on the block.
Right, he's a popular kid. He's easy to poke fun at.
Because he don't know me. I'm Muffin Top Tactical. I have like 3,200 downloads on my shit. I'm so far below this dude. And would I like to have Mike on? Absolutely. Would we get along if we went to the range? Absolutely. Because he likes doing cool guy shit. Like, I like to do cool guy shit.
Have I ever told you the story about how I met Mike Jones?
Did you, Mike? You lucky bastard.
Did I ever tell you the story about that?
Do tell.
So I used to work at Sharpshooting Indoor Range and Gun Shop in Spokane, Washington. So Spokane, Washington is also the home of Fairchild Air Force Base, where he was stationed. In some of his, not his super early videos, but a lot of them were filmed out where I'm at.
Oh, okay.
And so we were the FFL for him. And apparently, so I've just started this new job there. It's 2017. I'm super stoked to be working at a gun shop. I think it's the coolest thing ever. And here comes Grand Thumb through the door. And it's a fairly large shop. So I'm back by the counter. I'm like, holy shit, it's Grand Thumb. And the guy next to me is like, bro, it's Mike, relax. I'm like, shut your fucking mouth. He's Grand Thumb. So I'm fucking fangirling. I'm like, oh my God. And the manager at the store there, his name was Nick, and he was tight with him, and he'd met him and everything, and he comes back into our little gunsmith area, and he's bullshitting with Nick while he's waiting on his paperwork to go through for some guns some company sent him. And I kind of sheepishly go over to the door, and I poke my head in, and I'm like, hey man, how's it going? I go, oh hey bud, what's up? I was like, hey, I just big fan, been watching YouTube for a little while. I just started working here, just want to say hi. And he goes, oh, hey, bud. He had previously filmed a video there where they had built an AR-15, entirely, upper, lower, all of it. They built, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in that shop. And he was like, hey, did you ever watch that video of me and Nick building the rifle here? No, first off, it's a 45-minute video, and I already knew how to put a rifle together. So the answer was no, right?
Right.
I'm like, well, to be honest, no, I haven't seen that one. And he goes, and I thought you were a fan.
Oh shit!
And I was just like, oh my God! So every time he came in after that, he would just give me some shit, and I'd give him some shit back. But it was kind of funny. But
so
it was
he's a legit good guy.
Yeah, I mean, at least from what I had very limited interactions with him, mostly dealing around picking up guns from the store. But he didn't come across as a douche. He could take it and give it. He was a funny dude.
Right. And you know, I think that's probably who he is. I've got a weird kind of like T-Rex arms. I love and I hate the guy, but I've actually talked to him at multiple matches. I've ran into Lucas Bodkin at multiple matches, and I've talked to him. He seems like a legit guy, but it's funny when you go to these matches, you can literally tell the Lucas Bodkin followers because they all dress the same. They all have skinny jeans. They all have, they're literally Lucas Bodkin lookalikes, and here I am in my fucking shooting jersey and whatever pants I happen to be wearing that day. And I walked up to him and said, "Hey, Lucas, how's it going, man?" He's like, "Oh, hey." I'm like, "Hey, you put out some good videos. I appreciate it." He's like, "Yeah, dude, cool." And I'm like, "Cool." Just no. I mean, I wasn't going to stand there and bullshit him for, 15, 20 minutes because he had his the fanboys were 6 deep, and I was on my way to a different stage. I was shooting the match. And yeah, I mean, a lot of these, they're just dudes. There's a lot of, like Paul Harrel, he's just a guy.
Yeah.
Grand Thumb's just a guy. They like to shoot. They just happen to have found the magic in the algorithm.
Yeah, that, or they just do something just different enough to be like, yeah, I like this,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, it's interesting like that. I was talking to a buddy of mine actually recently, and I've always like one of the people I'm not a huge fan of is Mike Glover. I'm just not a big fan personally. And it was funny because I was talking to my buddy about that, and I was like, just from his videos, he's kind of douchey. And he goes, yeah, I've met him 3 different times, and he's been a dick each time. I was like, all right, so that checks out.
Well,
like he said, he went to one of his classes once, and it was like basically somebody else taught it. He just kind of hung out in the back, and occasionally would like show up on screen like while they were filming to like talk like as if he was teaching the course, and then he would disappear. Really? And like when people would come up to talk to him, he'd be like, go away. I don't want to talk to you. And it's like, he's like, maybe he was just having a bad day. Maybe he was burnt out, but he came across as a turbo douche. And I was like, okay, I feel validated.
Yeah. And, even Mike Glover, I don't want to talk trash about him a whole lot. Maybe he had a bad day that day. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because he puts on a lot of classes. So, I mean, that wears on a guy. But
yeah. But it's also one of those things, too, just keep in mind is like, just because someone, like they are just normal people, but also like it's YouTube, so it's the internet, and you don't always have to be the real you.
Right.
And so sometimes you find out that like people you thought were cool are douches, and sometimes you find out that people you thought were douches are actually really chill.
Right. Like I've met Jerry Mitchell a few times. Dude, phenomenal guy. Like no matter what, like just a phenomenal, like who you hope Jerry Mitchell is, he is. He's that guy. Like
that's always nice.
Like
when they live up to your expectations.
Right. And Lanny Oakley, she I don't know, you familiar with her?
A little bit.
Yeah, so I ran into her a couple times just in passing. I mean, I just said hi. But she said hi, and she's very focused. They're at these matches to shoot well. So, like, you can tell when you can talk to these people and when you can't.
I think that.
I just, in passing, just said hi, huge fan, good luck. And she's like, yeah, you too.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to bug them when they're trying to do stage planning or, loading their mags. That's not the time to bug them.
I was going to say, I think that's the other thing, too, is it's like, as a fan of somebody, also understanding, like, outside of my fangirl experience with Grand Thumb, it's one of those things where it's like, you got to understand, too, that, like, this person, especially if they are, like, that kind of YouTube celebrity, is probably seeing people on a daily basis,
right.
Like, things like that, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, don't be weird, don't be weird.
Yeah, don't stand by them while they're jamming mags, like, especially, like, on a competitive shooting scene. Don't stand next to them when they're jamming mags and talk to them. Because, honestly, there's a lot going to jamming mags. Make sure you're doing it right, the right number, blah, blah, blah. If they're standing there with pasters on their hand and, like, waiting to go set steel, maybe you can bullshit with them then. But not right before they're getting ready to shoot and not right after. Because, honestly, they could have had the shittiest stage. And they don't really feel like fucking talking to another human being right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've trashed so many stages, and usually when I'm jamming mags after I trash the stage, I don't want to talk to my friends. Like, all my friends know, like, ooh, Chris is pissed. Let him go jam his mags. Once he gets done with that, usually I'm done having a pity party, and I'm ready to socialize with other human beings. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's one of those things, too, I think that's kind of cool to see, like, how small the gun world really is.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's funny, like, I've got a buddy of mine who used to work at a gun shop over in Vancouver, Washington, on the west side, and I'm on the east side. And we were talking about different people we'd met or knew or shot with and things like that. And it's kind of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's even less. It's like 3 degrees to T-Rex arms. You know?
Yeah,
it's like,
3
I know a
degrees
guy.
to,
it's like, I know a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah, 3 degrees to Clint Smith,
Yeah, it's really funny to see like how you don't really have to go that far to find somebody who knows all the people that you're like, oh, that guy.
Right. So,
But yeah, I'll say with that, you know who does suck though?
who's that?
The FBI.
Yes. I just did I send you that picture right before we got on?
Yeah, it's funny to me, like all the anti-gunner people who are like, oh, how many times do shootings have to happen before we can take positive control of this and do gun legislation? It's like, how many times does the FBI have to have someone on their watch list and do nothing about it before they decide that your children are safe?
I saw a
Like,
meme. I saw a meme one time that has a guy say, "Don't say it" to the to the FBI, and he says,
yeah,
"We had him on our watch list."
yeah,
It's like, yeah. So they're saying that the school shooter, there in Georgia, correct?
yeah,
Yeah, was on their watch list. Like they talked to this dude when he was 13, 14, doing the shooting. They had a conversation with him. I don't know. Like the dad, I don't know how to feel about the whole thing. But
my thought with this too is like with this watch list thing is that you know how we always joke around about like being gun guys and like the stuff we watch on YouTube that we're probably on a list somewhere. I
we,
feel way better about being on a list at this point because at this point I'm like, well, they're not going to do anything anyway. So far, they're like 10 for 10.
well, they haven't stopped and talked to me yet. You know,
Well, that's how you know that you're getting ready to do something,
yeah,
apparently.
it's like apparently if they stop and talk to you, that's when you know you're about ready to commit crime. The
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I hate to get too far in the conspiracy world, but there's only so many times you can hear that stuff before you're like, what is going on here? Like, and how did the dad actually let this kid have this gun in his room? Like, how is he being held so responsible for this? Like,
Right. But
I
you
don't
know,
understand it.
yeah, that's one thing I think that's actually concerning from a gun guy standpoint is the idea that the dad's being charged with anything. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. Even if he did let the kid have the gun in his room, it's like how many of us grew up with guns in the house?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And like whether you know what I mean, like at my grandparents' house, there was a gun in the room. You know what
Right,
I mean? And it was like that's where growing up there or like growing up in my parents' place, like
right,
there was guns all over the house. I knew where all of them were. Like
right,
whether it was in my room or not, like I knew where they were. I knew how to get to them because the whole thing was like, hey, you're old enough now. Like if you're here or we're not, and stuff goes down. Like defend yourself.
right.
And so it's like I don't feel like he should be held for responsible for that.
Yeah,
You know, what I mean,
but
like it,
if he let the kid have open and non, like, okay, I didn't have unlimited access to firearms like growing up.
yeah,
Like my parents, I knew where they were.
yeah,
Dad was a cop, for Christ's sake. If he was sleeping, I knew where he kept his duty weapon. But if my dad caught me fucking with his duty weapon, he would have beat me within all Christ. You know what I mean? Like
right,
it was my dad never said no. Like if I wanted to see in the gun safe, if I wanted to carry, like I have hundreds of pictures of me at our property north of town with me with a rifle over my shoulder because I got to have a lot of freedom as a child. But dad knew when I had a gun. Dad knew, like, it wasn't like I never had one in my bedroom growing up, like, until I was 18 and I still lived there and I bought it on my own. And my dad said, okay, if you're going to have a gun in my house, you better have a safe. Just teaching me responsible gun
yeah.
ownership. You know, like
I mean, I think
if I'm gonna own a gun, I better have a safe. That makes sense. Like,
right. No, I think there's definitely like a parenting failure to where like if you know your kid's like that mentally fucked up
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're just gonna let them like sleep with a shotgun, probably a problem. But I don't know. I get real like antsy whenever we start charging with people with crimes that like
right. That didn't commit the
with that.
crime. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean I mean I look at it no different than if I left the keys on the table to my car
right.
and someone in my house like when I wasn't looking went and took my car and killed somebody.
Right.
because I left the, like, even because my car was unlocked and I left the keys out, am I now responsible for that? Like, I didn't put the beer in their body,
Right. Right.
and it's like, I can probably, again, I can't speak for everybody, but it's one of those things where it's like, I can probably imagine, like, hey, I grew up with guns, whatever, it's not that big a deal. He's, maybe he was responsible with them, thing like that. Like, he keeps it in his closet, whatever, it's his thing, and I'm using it to teach responsibility. I mean, like, I don't know. I bought my kid a rifle for his birthday for Christmas last year. Stays in the safe, and I'm trying to teach him to be responsible with it. But he doesn't get it in his room.
Right.
But I don't know. It's just one of those things I go back and forth on. But it's like, it's to me, it's like, it's like, well, hold on a second. If we're going to charge the parent, like, unless there's more details, and it's like the parent was like, knew this person was going to be, like, the bigger guy was like, hey, Dad, I'm going to kill people. And he's like, okay, here's a shotgun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
here's the best tool for the job. Yeah. Like,
yeah, like that's a different story. But I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I thought it was a weird development out of it. And I'm like, man, that kind of, I don't like what that could potentially imply in the future.
Yeah, because say you private sale a gun to one of your buddies, and 5 months later it's used in a crime. Like, how, like, they could send you to prison for that, or something like that. It's
Yeah, I mean, or God forbid, like, someone breaks in the house or something, and someone in my house who knows where my guns are defends themselves, and then someone decides, no, we're gonna raid that, we're gonna write that as a not good shoot for some reason. Am I now in trouble? Like, I wasn't even here.
Yeah, I was at work.
Yeah.
Let's just hope not, in that ATF van down the road. Mind your business. Like,
Oh yeah. It's speaking of tragic accidents. I did lose all of my guns in a boating accident yesterday.
yeah,
So
it was unfortunate. I went fishing, and golly, it's the worst day ever.
yeah. Yeah, no, it is one of those things where it's like, you look at the FBI and, like, what are you even here for? Like, you haven't stopped a single one of these things that you've tried to stop.
Yeah.
Like, at no point in time.
Did you see that the actual shooter that stopped the Trump assassination was actually the local yokel?
The one for the Trump assassination?
Yeah, it was actually the local SWAT team that actually put rounds on target first before the Secret Service. They left that out of their braggadocious shit,
See, again, this is one of those things where everyone's like, oh, dude, you don't want to do that. Like, the feds might come after you. And it's like, at this point, you're kind of like, okay. So far, the track record's not that great.
Well, I'm not talking shit on the feds. I'm just saying what's going on in the news cycle.
I mean, I'm talking shit on the feds.
I mean, everybody that knows me sees me walking around quite often with one of your T-shirts and then a shirt that says, I mean, I need to get the Waco one, and then the Ruby. I think I'm gonna get the Ruby Ridge one first, because I think that was even worse of a mess up. But
yeah, it's actually funny enough. I live only about an hour south of there.
Right.
Yeah, it's yeah. If you go up to that area, like, there's a lot of people who still hold a very deep grudge about that.
Oh, I imagine that still rings very. That's very close to home, to a lot of those people, because that's where they lived was very rural, and very self-sustaining people live in that area,
Yeah, it's sometimes I think about it too, where I'm, we look around at, like, government overreach and like some of the things that are happening in our country, and we're like, man, this is as bad as it's ever been. And I think, like, it's pretty bad, but also I think, like, you got to think, like, in the early 90s, within, like, the time frame of a year, we had both Ruby Ridge and Waco happen.
Right.
Like, it's kind of interesting, I think, like, looking back on it, like I said before, like, I'm 30, and so those happened right before I was born.
Right.
And then in, like, the 2014 era, like, do you remember, like, the Bundy Ranch?
Yep.
And then,
let's put a
and
pin
the
in it
Oregon
real quick.
stand. Yeah, okay.
And we're back. Sorry, I had to get rid of some liquids from all the coffee I've been drinking.
But yeah, no, it's like you had the Bundy Ranch, and then like shortly thereafter, you had like the Oregon standoff with the boy Finicum, and it's one of those
Was
things.
that the guy that was live tweeting that and calling everybody to come help him?
Yeah. He was the cowboy looking dude, and he had gone over to Oregon and was like they were talking about that in the car because so basically what happened was, so the Bundy Ranch thing went down, and a couple years prior, and that was basically the government came in and tried to basically steal some land from some people, and they said, yeah, get bent, and a whole bunch of people showed up to support them, and the Fed backed off because they had like a whole like basically army of civilians roll up, and
I believe
then
James Yeager was a big part of that, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because because that's when
fellow rest in peace gun tuber.
yeah, I forgot about that with him. Yeah, and then the Oregon thing that was they were going down there because it was a similar type situation, and yeah, it started out as like being like they basically just took over this like wildlife preserve building that was empty, and they kind of hung out there for a bit, and they were basically on their way to go talk to the sheriff to negotiate like them leaving and everything being like bygones, right? And they got ambushed by the FBI along the way and gunned down, and Lavoy Finicum got killed. And it's a very controversial aerial footage of that. But then it's like you go from there and everything's kind of quiet until you get to like 2020 and the BLM summer stuff, and it's like, man, you look back and you're like, well, there's not been a lot of there's been a lot of wild stuff that's happened in the last 30 years. That's been like pretty contentious,
fiery but mostly peaceful protests.
Oh yeah,
kind of like in England where it's stabby but mostly peaceful protests. It's like you can't. Okay, England, you can't use our. I mean, they're just literally using our propaganda. They're like, it's pretty stabby, but it's mostly peaceful. It's fiery, but mostly peaceful. Then you got Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I would say I heard a comedian talk about that. It was really funny. He's like, yeah, I went to England. And he's like, England sucks. They've got like medieval problems. Like, oh no, the Queen died and Prince Charles shall take the throne. It was like, do you want me to go get the town crier? Like.
I'm going to get stabbed to death between the fourth and fifth rib.
And some lady in the crowd who's British, she's like, well, you have shootings. He's like, at least that's a modern problem. He's like, what's the biggest crime in UK right now? She's like, stabbings? Oh, no, I've been daggered.
He brought out his concealed dagger and stabbed me with it. I think they have to, don't they have to, like, even, like, register their cutlery that they buy?
Yeah, dude, like there's a picture that came out when the whole thing started where it was like a kid's dinnerware set, like a Thomas the Tank Engine dinnerware set, and it had a little knife in it, and you had to be 18 or older and provide ID to be able to purchase that.
Wow. Like,
yeah, dude.
Like a plastic,
it's
probably plastic too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to me. Like, if you look at like a historical thing, like, England used to make some very elegant, beautiful firearms for a long time.
Absolutely. And
had a very strong, thriving gun culture for quite a while. And then one day they're just like, nope. Like when the Brits invaded the Falklands, they literally didn't have enough guns.
Right.
And there were stories about the government showing up to people's house and being like, we see that you have an FAL like registered on your paperwork, and we're offering you compensation because we need it for the army. And I was like, I am not cool with gun confiscation, but that's kind of a cool reason, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Hey, we need to come to you because you have better guns than we do right now.
Yeah, can we borrow it? I'm like, well, as long as I get it back, homie, or you're gonna pay me what I put to have this thing put together.
Well, that's like, they're talking about like, Kamala Harris is like, oh, well, if they can't pass gun control,
mandatory
my first
gun
100 days.
Yeah,
she's like, Yeah, and in her speech, she was like, well, we want to do this right, and we want to make sure that people are financially compensated correctly for what
Right.
they spent. And I'm like, do you realize the amount of money we don't have to pay for this?
Yeah. Like one of my rifles is like worth like $4,500. Like you're
Yeah,
not
like,
gonna give me that. Like
you think about like 90 million gun owners, right? And they're like, well, there's only, like 12 million assault weapons or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool, whatever. Well, let's take, even if they were all palmettos, right?
four at five
That,
six hundred a piece.
yeah, that's like $6 billion. And that's not including accessories or anything else. That's just the gun. Like if every gun that they were trying to collect was $500, that's like $6 billion we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because I tell you this, I don't think I have one gun that is worth it to me less than probably a grand. A grand is where I draw the line on most of my shit. Like I don't
Yeah.
have
Well,
trash. Like I don't have many Bear Creek Arsenals or Palmetto, and I'm not trying to flex on the poors because I'm not. I mean I've had them, I've owned them, but just currently in my arsenal they don't exist in there.
I think that's kind of a natural evolution for a gun guy is like you start out and you, especially like if you're like, oh, I don't really know much about this, but why not? And then you get one and you're like, oh, okay, well, I kind of like this, but I'd like something maybe a little bit better or
Right.
maybe a little bit higher quality. You kind of like escalate that because I know like when I got started, um, like I knew about guns and I was like a gun guy, but I couldn't tell you really the difference mechanically between, like a $1,500 rifle and a $500 rifle.
Right.
And so I know like my mindset over time shifted to where it was like $800 for a rifle. Like that sounds pretty, kind of expensive, but okay, you know. And then over time, I'd be like, as I learned more, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll buy a Daniel Defense for $1,800.
Right.
And then one time in the shop, like a Knight's Armorette came in one time, and I was like, ooh, 3 grand for a used Knight's. That's not bad,
Yeah. Yeah, but that's
And
actually after you've already worked at a shop and you've kind of seen
right.
how shit works in real life.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, is like how many people are like, oh, well, my Palmetto, it's got 10,000 rounds through it, and I ain't got no problems. And it's like, I'm not saying it doesn't, right? I'm just saying I heavily doubt it because I've seen the number of guns that come through for gunsmith work
Right.
at the shop I work at, and I've seen what they are. And look, Palmetto puts out some decent stuff, but the big thing is when you're putting guns out at that large a scale, you're going to have quality control issues. And I've had stuff to where like I don't know how it was physically possible, but we had like a gas tube installed upside down and backwards. And we were like, homie, did you build this? And he's like, no, I bought it from Palmetto directly. We're like, of course you did. You know, and it's like, or things like that, or like where the D ring has just been cranked on by a gorilla to where everything's stripped and broken.
Yeah, you literally wreck the upper receiver trying to twist the barrel off. It's like
Yeah.
you got to have a 2 foot cheater pipe to get it off.
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff like that where you're like, you know, this is, I get the idea that like, hey, if you can get a decent rifle that shoots okay for $500, get yourself like $100 red dot. For the average person, that's probably okay,
Well, one
right?
of one of my buddies, Brian, he bought the Saber line, the one with the A1 stock, the
Yeah.
13.7 with the front sight post, and I told him, I said, this is what I would buy. If I was buying one gun, I'd buy this gun, put a Daniel Defense A1 rear on it, and then whatever you want for a. He ended up going with a Vortex Strike Fire 2. And I'm like, boom. That is a gun that'll get you through the Z-Poc forever. And then we went and zeroed it, uh, ran some drills with it. It's the Palmetto State Armory Saber line. It's a 13.7. I'm like, so if I'm ever around you, I could loan you my suppressor, and your suppressor will work because I run Dead Air Sandmans, and they all have
Oh, there you go.
the chemo.
Yeah.
And that's what brings it out to the 16 legal length. And Yeah, he was like, wow. Then I'm like, I threw a suppressor on. He's like, ooh, that's cool. What kind of suppressor is that? I think I'm gonna buy it. And I'm like, I mean, I think Palmetto Saberline is pretty good, but also uh, I've heard mixed reviews on the Saberline also, but I think that is a step up in quality.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where like they've gotten better over the years, and I think nowadays with as many people as make AR-15s and as long as they've been being made for, it's kind of hard to fuck it up.
Right,
Which is always why, like, when you get a company that is known for constantly being under quality, you're like, I get you're trying to be cheap, but like that's the other thing too is it's like just because it's $300 doesn't mean it's a hell of a deal.
Did you ever come up with a conclusion of your Bear Creek Arsenal stuff?
So I haven't put the video out yet, and I should probably assemble it. But like, so my thing was I didn't really have too many issues with them.
Right,
Granted, I only due to financial constraints, I only had about
right,
500 rounds to put through each one, so I didn't really have too many issues with them. But I will say like the finish and kind of the wear and tear on it is a little more than what I would like to see in 500 rounds.
right,
And kind of my take on this is if you are buying a rifle from Bear Creek or Palmetto, due simply to the fact that it is $400 or $500, you will probably not ever afford you probably are not going to be able to realistically afford the amount of ammo you need to break that gun.
right,
Right? Like your average person doing that is probably not dumping 1,000 rounds every time they go to the range.
right,
Because if they have, that's probably that's like what, 350, $400 now for 1,000 rounds.
correct.
So it's like your average person, if they're buying a $400 AR-15 and like $100, like Sig Romeo 5,
Right,
because of their budget, they're probably not dumping 400 rounds every time they go to the range. So they're probably never going to destroy that barrel or never
right,
destroy that rifle. But
right.
realistically, that rifle is probably like maybe a 4,000 round gun.
Yeah, I like the base model palmettos. I tell everybody, I'd say that's probably a 5 to 7,000 round gun, like what you said.
Yeah.
Depending on how hard you beat it, like if you're not, I mean, if you're running it suppressed and you're running
Right.
hard, that's a different story. But like if you're just out there plinking, I mean, great plinkers. Now, if you do the step up to the Staber series, I imagine they're better. Well, better
I'd hope
components. I hope
I'd hope
so.
so for the price increase.
Yeah, because it goes up from like 4 or 500 to
I
$1,300.
think they start about 12 or 13. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Palmetto is doing a great thing. I will never talk trash on Palmetto all that much. I mean, you just got to understand what you're getting for the price
Yeah.
point. Like
I mean,
Bear
exactly.
Creek, if you're buying a Bear Creek and you think you're gonna get a competition ready, I'm gonna win nationals with this rifle. I'm sorry, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
That's not what you're gonna get. You might get a good weekend plinker, but you're not gonna win national match, quality out of it. It's just
I think
not
like a good
there.
way to look at it too is it's like, okay, so if you're gonna go get a rifle like Bear Creek, for example, right?
Right.
If you're the kind of person who's looking at Bear Creek, realistically, that's probably an okay rifle for you because you're probably not doing a ton of realistic rifle stuff. Like you're probably thinking, I'd like to have an AR-15 to have one, either because F the government or I want one for home defense. I'm gonna put a cheap light maybe and an optic on it, and I'm probably gonna get like something like a Romeo 5 or a Hollow Sun, something like that. Probably like a Streamlight light or something like it on there, and it's going to sit in the safe. Once every couple months, I'll go to the range with the bros. We'll dump a few, 50, 60 rounds.
I feel
And
very judged because I run a lot of Streamlights and Hollow Suns.
hey, there's nothing against Streamlight or Hollow Sun. I run a lot of them too, and they work well. I'm actually doing a weapon. I'm actually working on a weapons light video right now,
And
but
yeah,
um,
I mean, I
they're
would
more
say more
affordable.
like
They're more
Olight or
affordable.
Olights or I mean, Hollow
I,
Sun. Man, they're coming out with some cool stuff. I think Hollow Sun has done more innovation in their optics
Oh
game
yeah.
than anybody else. Like, I mean, hello, Trujicon, wake up. Like,
It
start
kind of
paying
pisses
attention.
me off.
Right.
It kind of pisses me off a little bit that I'm like, hold on a second. Why are the Chinese coming out with all this shit and we haven't innovated in years?
My
I'm like,
my
they, that
my
that
internal hope is that they haven't embedded some like microchip that just kills everything once they hit the kill switch.
oh dude, I don't feel like they've gone that far. You know what I mean?
Because I
Like
have a
they
Holosun on my carry gun. I got a Holosun. I've got a
I think like
Holosun.
what's that newer one they have where it's like night vision and
Oh
thermal
yeah,
and it's
yep,
like a big ass EOTech type of deal. I'm like that and it's like I think what it's like $1,500
yeah, money.
for that and it's like dude that's really when you think about what you're getting in it like if someone might be like oh Jesus Christ $1,500 you know and I'm like well it's really not that much for what you're getting
Not
and
at
the thing
all.
that gets me is it's like had an American company made that you'd be like $4,000
Oh,
you know.
instantly.
And so that's the thing that's like I want to see that kind of like what excites me is seeing that kind of technology. I'm being like, okay, if that's where we're at today, and 5 years from now, I want every optic to do that. You know what I mean? Like it's like how 5 years ago you still had companies not making optic ready models, and now everyone makes an optic ready
Yeah, if
model.
you're
Like you're
not,
a retard if you don't.
yeah, if you're not cutting your slide for a red dot, where you at, bro? You know, it's like,
Which speaking of that, can we just ask the question like, why the fuck is Kimber still in business?
agreed. I've thought that for the last 10, 15 years.
Like,
Uh,
who is buying these?
if you're buying a teal super carry for your wife, you are wrong.
Like they just released a new one. I watch the Gun Collective a lot, and they because they show like what's new, and one of the new ones they released. It's just one of their normal 1911s in like a battle worn slate gray with diamond slide serrations on the rear, and a bronze
With
barrel.
more mem parts in it than a
Yeah,
thesis.
it's
Than a
just it,
thesis. I'm just
it's
saying.
just the same shit they've always made. They just did a different color pattern. They have like 10 stippling patterns and 10 color patterns and 10 barrel colors, and they just switch them, right?
I
And they're
trust
like
I trust
$1,500.
yeah, I trust a $800 thesis more than I would a $2,000 Kimber
Dude,
because
I
I don't
just
know
don't understand. Like I feel like the only people buying these, like
the
it's one of
fuds.
those things. Oh, dude, it's like if you buy this, I know for sure you went to the early bird breakfast, like without a
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah. You
Yeah,
went to the 4:30 to 5:30 breakfast. You caught the early bird dinner at 4 p.m. and you
yeah.
definitely carry, no offense, in a Galco shoulder holster, and you have a tan uh, camera vest on. No offense, I have
It
all that shit in my closet right now. I have the Galco, I have all that, but we know who you are. We see you.
Absolutely. I know you are going to go home and you are going to watch the Western Channel and you will be in bed by 8:30.
And so we're describing my dad, who makes some of the most. No, my dad makes the top end 1911s in the world.
Yeah,
Um, you need to check him out, his website out. Like my dad will not work on a Kimber frame.
right.
Like
And don't get me
he works
wrong.
off of Colts exclusively. Like if somebody sends him a Colt, he'll work on it. But
Don't get me wrong, right? There are some really cool 1911s that are out there. Some
dude,
companies have taken them and managed to keep them updated and modern from like a
right?
120-year-old design. There are cool stuff out there.
Like
It's
Cabot,
Kimber's,
yeah,
yeah, and some of them are like works of art,
right,
but specifically Kimber,
right.
just specifically Kimber. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
I judge people when they carry a Kimber. Like if
Absolutely,
somebody shows me a Series 70 Gold Cup Colt, I'm like, bro, you got some swag. You know what I mean? That's cool shit. But if somebody
yeah,
shows me the latest Desert Warrior Kimber, I don't care.
dude.
Like so so when I graduated high school, we're coming up on 50 minutes. We'll be going in the after hours shortly, but when
Okay,
I graduated, I got a Colt 1991 A1 base gun for graduation. And after I graduated from high school, I told my dad, I said, I don't have any money. Just do the basics of the reliability shit to it. So he put a good hammer, good beaver tail, went through, smoothed everything up, made it beautiful. Like, not beautiful, just made it run. All the parts were different colors because it was just whatever he had in the parts bin. Some of it was black, some of it was, uh, you know, uh, it was a blued gun with a stainless slide stop and some kind of weird colored ham. I think he just bobbed the hammer and rounded it off, put a grip safety on it, and smoothed it up to where it was reliable. I shot that thing till the barrel shot out of it, like that. And like, I wish I never refinished it because it had such natural holster wear on it. It was awesome. And one of my buddies bought a brand new Desert Warrior Kimber. And I was at the range, I was at the gun shop with him, and he's like, I bet you this gun will outshoot that old piece of shit you have. And I said, I will bet you your gun that it won't. I will bet you your gun. He's like, it's a brand new gun versus your old piece of shit. Cause dude, holster wear, dude, like, I just switched out the sights. Like, it had good sights, but it looked rough. But she ran, I called her Ethel, and cause she may not be ugly, but boy, is she reliable. And we went to the range and we were doing some drills. His had like 2 or 3 malfunctions, and I said, are you done? I said, are you willing to submit to Ethel? I said, I'll do you one better. I don't even want your piece of shit, Kimber. You can keep it.
Dude, that's hilarious. Like, that's
he put an order in the next week with my old man to buy a pro model custom 1911 with my dad.
Dude, it's like, I can't tell you how many times I've had like Kimbers come in and they're just all fucked up or like just royally screwed, and it's like,
well, how many times have you pulled the upper off the lower, the slide off the frame, and it's just electro penciled bunch of gibberish in there.
Yeah,
it's like
just every time, dude. I'm not a fan of Kimber, and
so I guess that there goes our possibility of being sponsored by Kimber.
Dude, someone was listening and they're like, dude, I think another good episode. We got to throw them guys in 1911, and they'd be like, fuck them.
No, everybody I know, everybody I know pretty much is not that big of a Kimber fan. Anybody that's a serious shooter that knows how to shoot 1911s, knows that there is a Kimber buys full page ads in Guns and Ammo because that's what sells guns.
Which, it's funny to me too, is to think about that, like how print media versus the internet has kind of changed gun buying practices a little bit. Because I think, like, realistically, outside of like, oh, you bought a Springfield and then we have your information, now we're going to start, like, for some reason I get Springfield Armory magazines. I've never once asked for one, right? And I own one Springfield, and it's a 1911, and it's because me and my buddy got matching 1911s as like a best friend's gun thing.
Okay.
And I don't.
TRP?
I have a range officer.
That's a decent gun.
Oh,
it's better than
range?
Kimber.
Yeah, it's the one with target sights.
Right.
And so I've got one of those, and like it's decent enough. It's just I never really shoot it. I'm not a huge 1911 guy. But It's one of those things where it's like, I never asked for this, but you keep sending me these emails, this mail, and it's like, I have never made a decision to buy a gun from a catalog, but I know, like, from working in the industry that I would get a lot of old people that would come in with that month's rendition of National Rifleman.
Right.
Open to page 34.
It's like, I want this gun.
I want that. Okay.
You betcha, sir. You betcha.
You got it.
So, we're coming up on 54 minutes. Let's do I usually like to end with some kind of like advice or
Yeah.
something. So I would say throw out a few people that in the passing of Paul Harrel, in honor of Paul Harrel, some people that might be good people to watch in honor of Paul Harrel. Not only Paul Harrel's channel, but some other people you get good info from.
Okay. Give me 1 second here to
Yeah.
pull up a list of people.
I'll go first.
Yeah, you
I
go ahead.
say not only Paul Harrel, he's good. Uh, Mac Military Arms Channel does pretty good stuff. And even though I tend to bring him up a lot, dude, uh, Grand Thumb and T Rex Arms do really good stuff. And TBT TV or whatever,
Yeah,
those
TFB
guys,
TV.
yep, TFB TV or whatever, they do good. Yeah, I would say check those guys out. They usually put out some good content, even though I give Grand Thumb shit, but I really think they do good work.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with all three of those. I would say if you're looking for some smaller channels too, that got put out some good information. If you want more like the Modern Minuteman type of thing, I think that one of them is called Modern Minuteman. He's been doing it for a long time. I really like him in the sense that he puts a lot of practical application out from the idea of just being a normal guy on a normal budget and how to do things like on the cheap.
Right.
So I would say he's got some good stuff. The entertaining side, I'd say administrative
Oh,
results.
yeah, he does great.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good entertaining stuff, and he's got a podcast channel too now that's called Armo Podcast, and it's admin results and managerial outcomes.
Right.
So he's got a podcast there that's really interesting because he'll interview a bunch of your other gun tubers and kind of give you their ideas and thoughts and starts, and it's really interesting. And he's got some good stuff that he puts out. He talks kind of like he did a whole couple episodes about future weapons the other day about the TV show and kind of how the influence that had. So I'd
Right.
say
Right.
that's another one. And then also Taprack Tyler. He's a personal friend of mine. So he's a guy who started out in California, and he's in my head he's kind of it's really cool to see this because he started off as a dude who listened to the podcasts that I do, and we would talk back and forth, and he was like, man, how do I get started like getting a group to go train together? And I was like, dude, you just gotta just do it. And so one day him and a couple buddies start doing like an open event for training, and it just kicked off, and it turned into a YouTube channel. And now he's got like I think like over 7,000 subscribers. He's just killing it. He's putting out
Nice.
he's putting out a ton of great info. He's partnered up with a couple guys that run a training company. And they've got like, it's not just, hey, here's my Glock 19 and what I do. I mean, he's got he's got some California compliant stuff that's interesting to see, but he's also just got some good stuff all the way around. And it's like good stuff. It's modern stuff. It's relevant. So check him out. And then, as always, you also can check me out on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. Mid-tier thoughts. And also, I want to throw out another personal friend, not personal, but friend of the podcast, Archetype of Man podcast. Nick Davis. Have you checked him out?
Not yet. I'm gonna have to.
He's been on the podcast once. We're gonna probably have him on again. The Archetype of Man. He does a fantastic. He's just a normal dude, man. He works a 9 to 5, works his ass off. He's just a regular guy, and yeah, I think he does some good stuff. And but yeah, the Archetype of Man. All these guys, check him out. And yeah, what you got? Anything else? We go
I
on
would
the
just
after hours.
Yeah, I would just say my last bit there, like I said, check us out at Mid-Tier Thoughts on YouTube. We've got our podcast on there as well. For other than that, I would just say, as things go on around in the world, just remember to keep your head on a swivel, stay positive about it, and keep focusing on the good stuff in life because there's enough bad stuff to drag you down. So focus on the positive and keep
Right.
moving.
And with
Yeah.
us, check out Muffin Top Tactical on all the major you podcasters. We're probably a couple months away from starting a YouTube channel. Muffin Top Tactical. Check us out. We have a rotating cast of hoodlums that come through here, and it's always a good time. So check us out if you got an hour to burn. So, all right, guys.
Absolutely.
With that, keep learning, keep shooting, and what's your normal send off there?
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Mid-Tier Thoughts. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yes, sir. Talk to you later.